friends, welcome back, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Stacy and I am the chapter Conundrum, and today I'm joined by my husband Jake because we want to do a joint unhaul. There are quite a few books on our cart that we've already read or that we've decided we have no interest in reading anymore.
Most of them are mine.
That's okay. And we're going to talk about it today.
All right.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay, let's get into it.
So the first book I have to talk about is Vicious by V.E. Schwab. Now, I'm unhauling this, even though I really did enjoy this book. I think I actually did give it 5 stars. But kind of the sequel, what was the sequel
Vengeful.
called? I read Vengeful, and I think I actually DNF'd it, yeah. I really didn't like it, so it kind of soured my taste on this.
I had the same problem with this series. I really liked Vicious, and Vengeful, not so much.
And I'm really not sure if I ever want to go back and reread it. And even if I did, I could always just do the audiobook for it. So we're both comfortable unhauling it.
Yeah. Give it to somebody else who will love it. Wow, that was loud. All right, the first one I have to talk about today is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. And I have already read this, but Jake on his mail route has a little free library and he didn't realize I had already read it and he picked it up for me. But yeah, I've already read it and I have no interest in rereading it. So in the unhaul pile it goes.
Chucking it. And a book that I recently DNF'd, Sorry Fury. I don't know if he's subscribed to you, but he should be. This is one of his all-time favorite books, but I didn't really like it so much. It's called 7 Deadly Wonders by Matthew Riley, and this is the first book. I'm not sure what the series title is called, but it's kind of it reads very much like an action movie, and I'm not really into action movies. In fact, I would say I love horror movies and thrillers, and this book, there's like the premise is like there's conspiracy around the world that has to do with like ancient Egyptians and the pyramids, and these guys are trying to find ancient artifacts, and I didn't really realize that that was what the story was about going in, but I got like halfway through the book and I'm like, this is not the book for me.
And I thought that I was going to give this a try because it sounds really cool, but then you said that there was something in it you didn't think I would like either. I can't remember what it was now.
I can't remember either, but I told you and you were like, oh, no.
Yeah, okay.
I think it had something to do with dreams.
Oh, yeah, that would make sense. I do not like reading about dreams.
But anyway, yeah, this was not the book for me, and I am chucking it.
Not chucking it. We're taking it to the used bookstore or a little free library.
Chucking
it. Oh, boy. All right, my next unhaul is Love Theoretically by Allie Hazelwood, and I read and enjoyed this. I think I gave it a 4-star rating, but I don't have any desire to reread it, mainly because this book felt like it was crafted around the theme, and it wasn't necessarily like a naturally unfolding story, and for that reason, I am just not going to reread it, even though I liked it. So, on to the next person it goes.
And a very recent DNF, I did not get very far into this book, is The Film Club by David Gilmour. Not the David Gilmour of Pink Floyd fame, but just some random guy named David Gilmour. Basically, this book is a nonfiction book about a guy and his son. And the son's not really doing too well in school, so what does the dad do? He says, okay, son, you're going to drop out of school and not have to work, but the caveat is you have to watch 3 movies a week with me. So I thought that was a really interesting, like, why would the dad do that? And the main interest was like, oh, what films is he going to pick for his son to watch? And I got like a couple chapters in and I'm like, I don't know any of these films. Like, this is not, and just the writing itself wasn't very good, and the conversations they had together weren't good. So I DNF'd it very quickly.
Oh boy.
And it's not something you're going to read.
No.
So we're chucking it.
All right, my next unhaul is In Order to Live by Yeonmi Park. And this is a nonfiction story about a girl who escapes or defects from North Korea. And I really enjoyed this. When I read it, I gave it a 5-star rating. But I think if I'm ever going to sort of revisit this, she has plenty of interviews on YouTube, and it's more interesting to hear it from her voice. I know all the details from her story now, so I'm ready to pass it on to someone else who will enjoy it.
another book that I DNF'd very, very quickly, which was disappointing because I've read and enjoyed another book by this author. What is Not Yours is Not Yours by Helen Oyeyemi. And I originally read Mr. Fox, which I really liked. I gave it 4 stars. This is actually like a short story collection. And I tried the first short story and it was very super boring and had no idea what was going on. So I kind of just skipped that one. It's like, okay, maybe that was a dud. And then I tried the second one, and I tried the third one, and then I was just like, you know what? It's just not for me. And I know it's not for you because it's kind of literary, wishy washy kind of crap, and you're not a big fan of that either. So we're chucking it.
All right, next up is Happy Place by Emily Henry. And I also read this, but I didn't love it so much. I had my complaints with it for sure. I think mainly in this one, the romance just focused so much on the physical aspects and also the conflicts that this couple had. Keep in mind, this is like a second chance romance for a couple who's been together for 10 years. And the conflicts that they had are like conflicts you figure out within like the first 1 or 2 years of having a serious relationship with someone. And so I just didn't find it believable for that reason. And I'm happy to pass it on to somebody who wants that kind of a vibe in their romance, but it's not me.
Someone will read it.
Yes. Actually, your mom already did, and she really liked it.
Oh boy.
But she's not going to reread it either. She's got a whole shelf.
She doesn't read books.
Yeah.
All right, so on to my next book. Another book. There's a very theme here. I DNF'd this book very quickly, like 30 pages in. And again, it's an author that I've read a few books by that I've really enjoyed. But this book is it's kind of different. Well, I guess it's right here. I'll just show it to you. It's The Unwritten Book by Samantha Hunt. And again, this is kind of nonfiction. It's kind of centered around her dad's. It's like she stumbled upon her dad who died, like a manuscript that he wrote, and it's kind of just her talking about writing and life, but like centered around this random book thing that her dad wrote, and it was just very boring, very just I don't know. It just didn't live up to all of the books that I really enjoyed by her, like Mr. Splitfoot, which one of my favorite books of all time. So I'm definitely just happy to get rid of it, and I know you're not going to read it either.
Okay.
Are you interested in this?
No, I'm good.
Okay, we're gonna chuck it.
All right, next in my pile is Lone Survivor by Marcus Luttrell. And this was given to us by an older lady in our life who's very sweet and who also reads. But neither of us have any interest in it, so we're just going to pass it on to whoever wants it.
Yeah, I'm not really big into well, I do like nonfiction, but I don't really like military stuff and history. I'm not a big history buff, so it's just, I don't really care. Sorry.
That's okay.
And then I guess all of the rest of the books are for me, right?
No, I have one more that I don't have physically because
okay.
I've already given it to my sister.
Okay. Well, I have these 3, and then I have 2 more that we don't own physically anymore. So
all right,
I have 5 more, and you have 1 more.
I'll let you do a few then.
Okay. Well, this book I actually did not DNF. I actually finished and enjoyed, but it's a mystery thriller, and I usually try to keep only like my all-time favorite ones. But How It Happened by Michael Kortia, I really enjoyed this book, and if it wasn't for like the last 50 pages or so, it could have been an all-time favorite because I loved the beginning of it. I loved how the author established the mystery, and it was just very well written. But like kind of the last 100 to 50 pages or so, the ending was fine. So it was more like a 4-star read. I enjoyed it for what it was. And also if I ever wanted to revisit it, I think I listened to it on Everend anyway, so.
Library. It was on our living.
Oh, library, yeah. But yeah, it was pretty good, but I don't have to keep the paperback.
Yes, and you had a whole conversation with me about the plot of this one, so I've already been spoiled for it, and I don't need to read it. I think so, unless I'm confusing it with another one.
I don't know.
Well, if I decide I want to read it, it's at our library.
I really liked it.
Okay.
Another one. Okay, well, this one actually, these next 2 books I DNF'd. This one is funny because I have a Patreon where uh, we do a Patreon wheel spin every month, and my Patreons are on there, and whoever wins gets to pick a book for me to read the following month. And our good pal Andrew from Andrew's Wizardly Reads, he happened to win, and the book that he originally chose was Lord of a Shattered Land by Howard Andrew Jones. And a lot of people, including Andrew, love this book. So he was excited for me
Wait.
to read it.
Am I gonna like this book?
No. We already talked about this. You're not going to like it.
Okay.
And I was excited, and I started, and it was pretty good, but I got like 7 or 8 chapters in, and I could kind of quickly tell this is not my kind of fantasy, where it's kind of I don't know, a quest where like every chapter is something completely different. Like, oh, the character is in this situation, he's in it, and then it gets resolved. And then the next chapter, completely different side quest, he gets this done and this done and this done. And I just don't like that writing style, because I also read Black Tongue Thief, and it was exactly like that. And for whatever reason, it's just not my cup of tea. But anyway, this book was just not for me. I didn't hate it necessarily, but it's definitely just not for me. And also, just to let y'all know, I did DNF it, which Andrew was salty about, but he picked another book, Sufficiently Advanced Magic, and I did read that and really enjoyed it and gave it 4 stars. But not this book.
Well, you and Andrew typically have opposite tastes anyway, so that's not really all that shocking.
Really, it was a miracle that I didn't DNF his other pick. But I really liked it.
Oh boy.
And then another book that was just a random pick for me, because I'm trying to get through as many of our physical books as possible. And I was like, you know what, this is a chunky book, so if we can get rid of this book, that'd be good. I DNF'd A Brief History of 7 Killings by Marlon James. You might recognize that name because he's the same author who wrote Black Leopard, Red Wolf, which is kind of a more literary fantasy book, which has mixed reviews, I think. And this is definitely literary. But what intrigued me about the book was that it's centered around the assassination attempt of Bob Marley. And that got me intrigued. And it's written in 5 parts. And really, part 1 is the day before the assassination attempt, and day 2 is the day of. And both of those were really good, really enthralling. I liked the characters, I liked the plot. But then after that, it really has nothing to do with that. And you get to part 4, and some weird stuff's happening that I was not going to expect.
It lost the plot.
It completely lost the plot, and I just did not care. I read the part of the book that I enjoyed, but then it got to the part of the book where I just did not care. And I know this is not your cup of tea.
Yeah.
So we're chucking it.
Happy to give it to somebody else who will like it. All right, so next up, we have 3 more books to talk about, but they've already been passed on to my sister because she said she would be interested in trying them out. So I have Vow of Thieves, or had Vow of Thieves by Mary Pearson, and this is the second book in a sequel duology. It's following the Remnant Chronicles, but I read the first book in this duology a couple months ago through the library, and I didn't really like it that much. I wasn't as invested, which I was very sad about because I really loved the Remnant Chronicles back when I read it. But ultimately I decided I didn't really care that much, so I was happy to get rid of my physical copy of the second book.
And I have 2 more books to talk about. I did finish both of these, and I really liked one of them. I'll go with the one that I didn't like so much, and that would be Between Two Fires by Christopher Bowman. Like I mentioned previously, I read Black Tongue Thief. Wasn't a real big fan of that. I gave it 2 stars, but a lot of people said that I would like this one more, which I did, but I only gave it 3 stars. It's kind of historical fiction, which can kind of go either way, especially when it's mixed with fantasy. But it sometimes works. Like, I like Poppy War. But this one was kind of like, medieval ages, like in the 1300s in like France, and there was a lot of religious stuff going on, and I don't know, it just I wasn't a big fan of it. So I did finish it though. Like I said, I gave it 3 stars, but I didn't want to keep it. And the next book I actually really did enjoy, and that was Brother by Anya Alborn. And this was actually my favorite book that I read in September. I gave it 4.5 stars. It's a horror book, kind of like with a generic horror trope of this weird backwards family in West Virginia. It lives deep in the woods, and they're out killing people. But it's got kind of a twist because one of the members of the family doesn't really like all of the killing stuff, and he wants out. And basically, the whole story is kind of his struggle with that, and then mixed in with a lot of past stuff of like his older family and how he got mixed up in with this West Virginia family. And it started out kind of okay. Like I was giving it 3 stars at the beginning, but then you get some reveals at the end, and it just becomes really bonkers, and it's really gruesome and really just deranged and unhinged. And it was really good, but it's one of those horror books where I just know I'm not going to ever reread it.
Yeah, the joy was in the reveal.
Yeah, it was really good in the moment, but I'm like, I'm never going to reread that again. So we passed both of those books on to your sister, which no idea if she's going to like any of those, but we'll see.
Let her try them. What does she got to lose, right? They were free.
She's got time. Precious time.
She can always DNF them.
Yeah. I DNF plenty of books, obviously.
Yeah, you're like the DNF king this month, or the last couple months.
Yeah, I'm going for Andrew's title.
Okay. So those were all of the books that we had on our recent unhaul. Out with the old and with the new. Our next video is going to be a haul, probably. Or we're going to have one coming up very soon.
And we're not going to be able to fit them on the shelf.
Yeah, I got some more of my books from home, too.
And it's going to be my birthday soon, and I know I'm going to be getting some books.
And then Christmas, and we're both going to be getting some books.
We're going to need a bigger shelf.
We're going to need a whole extra shelf.
Yeah.
We better get reading.
I got to stop doing all these rereads. What the hell am I doing?
I don't know. I don't know what you're doing. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and hope you have a great day. Bye.
Bye.